Hello vinyl community, and this is the third in my series called SMYT, Show Me Your Tickets, and today I'm going to focus on The Clash. So luckily, because of my period of time when I was going to see a lot of shows, I'm still seeing a lot of shows, but when I was younger, The Clash were still in existence, and I got to see The Clash, I guess about 6 times over the course of my life. Before Strummer died, 5 of them, I think, with the full lineup that we think of them as of The Clash, and then the 6th time was the Cut the Crap tour, which was without Mick Jones, so that really wasn't to me the full Clash experience. But I can tell you a little bit about my journey with seeing The Clash live, because I had some really great experiences and want to share that with those of you who might be interested. So to start with, first heard The Clash on their self-titled album. To me, I think I heard it a little bit before I was ready for it. I didn't love the production, very muddy. And took me a while to really hear the songs out of the production. And of course, you know, being like a classic rock guy at that time, I'd only just started getting into punk. And the Sex Pistols record, to me, just jumped off the vinyl, as did the Stranglers, Radis Norvegicus. But the first Clash record took me a little bit of time to really appreciate the songs because of what I deemed to be not as good production. So the album I actually got into is the one that's much maligned. Sandy Pearlman, who was known as a hard rock producer, produced this record. I loved it. Right from the very crack of the snare drum and the beginning of Safe European Home. I remember, you know, taking political theory in university and listening to White Riot and Safe European Home, things like that, and starting to see that things weren't always hunky-dory, and that the world that I lived in kind of middle-class Canada was not the way it was for the rest of the world. Anyways, really like this record. So these first 2 records were out, and then I heard that The Clash were playing in Toronto at the O'Keefe Centre, which is, I think, now called the Sony Centre. It was called the Hummingbird Centre. And I was going to school in Kingston, Ontario, and a group of us rented a T-Bird, and we drove down to Toronto to see The Clash. Opening up for them were the Undertones and Toronto's own B-Girls. And we were very excited. Got about 14 rows back from the front. This is all before London Calling came out. So this was September of 1979. And looking at the set list now as well, they probably played about 6 or 7 songs from London Calling, which is pretty ballsy, but they probably knew they had a great record on their hands. And it was amazing. The show was great. One of the strongest memories was when they played White Riot, which turned out to be the last song. I don't even remember if it was an encore. There was a wave of people moving from back to front, and we just jumped on the wave and just kept running up to the front. Next thing I knew, I was on stage. I remember Strummer running right beside, like right in front of me. People, my brother tells me, I don't remember this, people were pulling buttons off of his shirt, like I think like punk buttons, not shirt buttons. And I remember standing in front of Topperhead and just kind of going, well, now what do I do? And the show was over. Famously, there were something like 14 or 15 broken seats in the auditorium, and the O'Keefe Centre came out and said they would never have another rock show at that venue because they felt that it had gone so badly. It wasn't a riot. It was definitely getting a bit carried away, and lo and behold, they ended up having some rock shows there, and to this day still do under their new moniker. But what a show. Drove back in the T-Bird back to Kingston, got stopped in Napanee for speeding. The police, I was in the back seat with my shirt off. I'd had it off from just pogoing all show, and they made life very difficult for us, but we managed to get back to Kingston early in the morning, and that was my first Clash show. The second time I was expecting to see them was at a concert music festival outside Toronto at Moseport, which was a race car venue, I guess, and there've been many shows there. The Rolling Stones, AC/DC, SARS benefit was there, I believe. Anyways, it was called Heat Wave. It was a fantastic show. I'm going to feature that sometime in the future as a specific music festival memory, because there were so many great bands and so many great shows. So I won't cover that in great detail right now, but they ended up canceling and not coming to that show because they were working on Sandanista. So tremendous disappointment. Didn't get to see them there. In one of my earlier videos about Show Me Your Tickets, or no, I don't know if it was, anyways, I was backpacking through Europe, went to London, weren't really any shows that I really wanted to see. Then I went to Paris, and within 1 week I saw the Gang of Four, New Order, and The Clash after Sandanista. And many of us know Sandanista. A lot of people would say, well, this should be a 2-record set rather than a 3-record set. And that may be true, but I think it's aged really well. There's a lot of experimental stuff, and there's just some great music. If you had it down to 2 records, it would be very close second to me to London Calling, but I know that's just my opinion, not necessarily shared by everybody. So arrived in Paris on May the 8th, and I'm looking at my ticket now, arrived in Paris on May the 8th and saw at the Fnac store, which is the local retailer for music and tickets, that the Clash were playing that night in a place called the Hippodrome. And this is my ticket. So got to see the Clash at the Hippodrome in Paris that night. Amazing show. Actually, the show was good, but the amazing part was to just arrive in Paris and suddenly realize that I'm going to see the Clash. And these kinds of things have been said before, but when you have no cell phones, no internet, you don't know really what's going on in other cities. You have to really dig and find that. So when I arrived and found out the Clash were playing that night, it was a revelation for me, and I got to see the show. The next time I got to see the Clash were 2 back-to-back shows. These would have been in 1982, and it was the Combat Rock Tour, and that poster, actually, so this is part of that same tour. It's called, oh no, this was earlier. So we're going back to now the pre-London Calling show. So this was in Detroit. I didn't go to that show, but again, Undertones opened up without the B-Girls. And then this was the poster for the Clash at the O'Keefe Center, 1982. Sorry, 79. I'm getting all my years mixed up. Getting slow. Yeah, 1979, September 26th, ticket price $8.50 to see the Clash. Even with inflation, that seems like a pretty good deal to me. So moving forward to what I was mentioning before, this particular show, Black Uru opened 2 nights. We saw them September 4th in Montreal, the Verdun Arena. Smaller venue. It was a really, it was a Strummer show. They were doing a lot more Strummer-focused music of his songs. And then the next night in Toronto, they were, Clash had become huge by Combat Rock with Rockin' the Casbah and things like that. So they played the C&E Grandstand, which is basically the football, and at the time, I think the Blue Jays baseball stadium. So it was a big show, and they tend to focus a little bit more on Mick Jones stuff. And 2 great back-to-back shows, very different. Know Your Rights, all 3 of them. And that was it for, I guess, the Clash, other than Cut the Crap tour, which I'll cut the crap and I won't talk about it. But I had the good fortune of seeing in Seattle after I'd moved here to Vancouver, and got to see Strummer and the Mescaleros play at the Moore Theatre down near Pike Street. And a little story on that one. So we were just standing around in the parking lot waiting for, well, doing what you do before a show, need I say. And a taxi pulls up, door opens up, and Joe Strummer comes out of the cab. And I'm just looking at hey, Joe. I had no idea what to say. And my friend Dean said, can I help you with your guitar? And he took Strummer's guitar and walked into the show and basically went backstage with Strummer. And we were just sort of left dumbfounded. And it was a good show, but I was still had that legacy thought of comparing it to the Clash. And I don't know any of you who are Joe Strummer and Mescaleros fans or know the whole Clash, Strummer and Mescaleros catalog. One of the things I've found over the years is I've come to really appreciate Strummer and the Mescaleros. At first, comparing it to the Clash, it didn't have that incendiary, explosive kind of quality, and I was missing that. But after a while, I really loved the Mescaleros stuff. And sort of referencing that, If you ever get a chance, I think it was on Amazon for a while, not a bad price. But this is a 2-record set, Strummer and the Mescaleros, very bootleggy. Maybe it is a bootleg, I think it probably is. This is a really well-recorded record, and this was, I think, the last time Mick Jones jumped on stage and they did Bank Robber and White Riot together, as well as London's Burning at the very end of the show. But this was I think a fundraiser for a particular fire hall, or for striking firefighters, a benefit concert for striking firefighters. As we know, Strummer was very active politically and always wanted to help, the common man or people who are hardworking, working middle class, people. And anyways, this is a really, really good record. If you get a chance, it is a excellent recording as well as performance. And they do quite a lot of Clash stuff, Police and Thieves, I Fought the Law, and the aforementioned stuff. And then they do a lot of the Mescaleros stuff, and it is great. It is so good. So that's it for me. The Clash, show me your tickets. Love to hear any other Clash stories. Feel free to put them in the comments and subscribe and like if you can. Carpe diem, motherfuckers.